Everyone knows the Powerpuff Girls. They are strong, fast, agile. They're basically miniature Supermen, capable of saving the world from any threat that comes their way, or even destroying it if they wanted to. You know, it's powers like that that make the people of Townsville forget that these are just three little girls. Little girls with the added pressure of being the city's saviors on their back. With them being heroes, going to school, and their responsibilities outside of that, it's easy to see how they could become overworked.
Will you guys shut up? You three are the lousiest, most pathetic criminals ever to walk the street. You stink. We don't ever want to see you again. Get out of town. Don't ever come back. Get out. Get out. Get out.
Which is exactly why there has been so many attempts to bring a fourth Powerpuff Girl into the picture. Seems like every single time they try, it ultimately ends in failure or even tragedy. So in this video, I'll be telling you the origin of every fourth Powerpuff Girl. It was a beautiful day in Townsville. The sun was out, people were relaxing, sitting on the beach, getting tans. Everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves. Everyone except for the Powerpuff Girls.
Everyone except for the Powerpuff Girls.
The city was infested with crime. Anything from robbers to monsters and even kaijus infested Townsville. While most of the city just continued on with their day. I mean, if Townsville knows that the Powerpuff Girls will be down there to save them from any minor inconvenience, then why would you even try to do anything for yourself? Oh, after a long day of saving irresponsible people's lives, the girls go back home absolutely exhausted. The weight of the world's problems finally starting to take a toll on them. But there was no time to rest, because as soon as they got home, the professor would have even more for them to do.
You need to clean your room, wash the dishes, take out the trash, finish your homework, fix the roof, eat your dinner, clean your plate, sweep the floors, brush your teeth, comb your hair, make your bed, finish your homework, fix the roof, eat your dinner, clean your plate, sweep the floors, brush your teeth, comb your hair, make your bed, feed the cat, fix the boards.
Girls have been pushed to their absolute limits. Sure, they could fix the world's problems by themselves, but why should it have to be so hard on them? Don't they deserve a break? Or at the very least some help? So the girls agreed. After they finished their chores, the girls would pretend to go to bed and sneak to the lab with an idea. They wanted to recreate the formula of sugar, spice, and everything nice with the hopes of creating a sister. Sounds fantastic. I mean, I'm sure they could use the extra help. Except they didn't have all the ingredients, so instead they used sweet powder, dirt twigs, and everything nice.
Alright! Crayons are nice. Books are nice. Lizards are nice. I like flowers. Computers are good. A football. Stuffed animal. A calculator. A mackerel. More flowers. A compass. Boxing gloves. Art. Spinning game. A smiley face. A glow. A knuckle sandwich.
Little quote-unquote accidental chemical X. And with that, Bunny, the fourth Powerpuff Girl, the first fourth Powerpuff Girl, was born. Very first glance, we see that because of the ingredients used, she didn't end up like the other girls. She was tall with disproportionate arms and legs, crooked teeth, extremely hairy, and had bugged eyes. But I guess the other girls had that last one too. But despite all her disfigurements, the girls didn't seem to care at all. They immediately loved her and accepted her as one of their own. But even though they all loved her, the reason for her creation still stands. The girls are overworked and they need a break. Being little children and not proper caregivers, they send Bunny out on her own with only one rule. Save good guys, fight bad guys, and put them in jail. Sounds simple enough, right? Wrong! Because Bunny was just born and doesn't know the difference of good and bad. She was only a few minutes old at that point. So not knowing the rules of the world, she would end up confusing good and bad with calmness and aggression, which would lead her to save the robbers who were pleading with police, and instead beat up and arrest the police who had their guns pointed at them. Which, if you're Bunny, I guess that makes sense in your head. I mean, her objective was to stop the bad guys and save the good guys. And who looks like the bad guy or good guy here? The cops are the ones holding the guns against the criminals. So it's easy to see how she could have got confused. decides to save Townsville from the police who ran the city and free all the criminals that she had believed to be victims. Problem was, not only was she releasing criminals, most of the criminals she was releasing were criminals that the Powerpuff Girls had put away themselves. This created mayhem in the streets. The city was ran over with bad guys. After seeing what their unsupervised infant sister was doing on the news, the girls went to go confront Bunny. After seeing the mayhem that Bunny caused, they finally found her, and they told her that because of what she did, that they were wrong about her, and that she isn't fit to be a Powerpuff Girl. As you could imagine, that broke Bunny's heart. In her mind, she was only doing what the girls had asked of her, but it wasn't good enough. So Bunny flew away, covered in her tears. But now a new problem arose. The girls were now surrounded by every criminal that they had put away in the past. Criminals who wanted nothing more than to get their revenge on these girls who had locked them away. So the criminals decided to attack the already overwhelmed girls. Exhausted from all that they had done that day, the girls couldn't even fight back. They just laid there and accepted their defeat. With absolutely no help in sight, it had looked like this was it for the Powerpuff Girls. They were surrounded. They were being beaten. There was nothing they could do. Until from out of the sky they see Bunny, who arrived just in time to put a stop to the bad guys and save the day. With the hopes of fixing the problems that she had started, she would beat up the criminals and try to put them in jail. But just before she could do that, she would explode. After just hours of being born, the Powerpuff Girls would watch their infant sister die in front of their eyes. Nothing remaining but a piece of her dress. And all the girls could do is look on in shock. The girls in absolute disbelief. Bunny was gone. She died trying to fix the problems that she had unknowingly created. She died not knowing if her sisters would ever accept her again. But without her, there would be no more Powerpuff Girls. No one else was coming to save them. With not even the professor knowing about it or her at all, she truly was the last hope. And she didn't disappoint. Now the girls have to carry the pain of knowing they created a life and in turn caused its death. And that was it. That was Bunny. She was never brought up or returned again. But although she may be gone, many others like myself, the fans, and even the Powerpuff Girls themselves consider her to be a true Powerpuff Girl. She'll always have a place in our hearts. The city of Townsville was relatively quiet and peaceful. The town was enjoying a day that seemed to be free of all chaos, something that was not often the case with Townsville. Girls were enjoying a picnic in the forest when a squirrel that was enjoying life with its family was now being chased by a bird that had its eyes locked on it. Fearing for its life, it tried everything to get away from the bird. It hiding, it tried cowering, it even tried climbing up a tree, but I guess it forgot that birds live up there too. Nothing this squirrel did seemed to get this bird off of its back until Bubbles decided to arrive. After saving the now sick and weakened squirrel, the girls took it home to take care of it. After analyzing the squirrel, the professor took notice of it and decided that it was time to give the girls a talk. Though the girls have been through so much and have faced so much worse at this point than a sick squirrel, they hadn't really experienced loss before, or at least not to the professor's knowledge. This could easily just be speculation, but the idea of losing someone seemed to really bother Bubbles in particular. I wonder if any of that comes from the memory of losing Bunny. Either way, it was enough for Bubbles to wait until everyone was asleep, sneak out into the lab, and take some Chemical X just to use on this sick squirrel. After waking up, the girls go to surround the wounded squirrel in hopes of seeing that it got better. But before they could verify if it was actually okay, the girls got a call from the mayor to come down and save him. Buttercup and Blossom leave almost immediately to go help the mayor, but Bubbles stays back. She's still very worried about what happened to the squirrel. She was very scared to leave the squirrel's side because she didn't know if what she had done would actually work or not. For all she knew, it could have made things worse. After the professor pleaded with her to go help while he washes the squirrel, she goes to the mayor's office, only to find that Mojo had used a mind-controlling device to get the mayor to lure them to him. Buttercup smashed the device before she even knew that it came from Mojo Jojo, but I mean, it's Buttercup. What do you expect? Buttercup's gonna smash. They then head to Mojo's lab, but before they could do anything, they got trapped in some sticky paper by Mojo. It sounds a little weird, but you know what type of sticky paper I'm talking about. That really gross, sticky, gooey, fly-catching paper. The really nasty stuff. The orange little wrap, you know what I'm talking about. The stuff is gross. It's nasty. Anyways, they're stuck in it, and they're trapped. There's nothing they can do. They try getting out. They try prying themselves out. It just does not work. Mojo then proceeds to pull out every single weapon he has with full intent on murdering these girls with vicious intentions right in front of them. Before he could even do that, a flash of yellow light came through the window. This light freed the girls in almost an instant. Before they knew it, they had already defeated Mojo. With the girls being confused at what exactly saved them, they look on Bubbles' head, and there they find the very squirrel that they tried to help themselves end up saving them in return. The girls would then take her home and deem her to be a real Powerpuff Girl. But with that out the way, the last thing they had to do was name her. And because the rest of them had names that start with B's, they would end up settling on Bullet. Bullet and the other Powerpuff Girls would go on to save the city from lots of crime, and they did a really good job. But something felt off. Bullet had been protecting Townsville, but after seeing what happened to her, she decided to use her powers to take down the bird that caused it all. After a long battle with the bird, but ultimately defeating him, Bullet and the other Powerpuff Girls would decide to fly off and go back home like they usually would. Except this time, mid-flight, Bullet would fly back home to the forest. The girls would not understand and follow her and try to plead with her to come back home with them. Bullet would agree at first. Bubbles saw firsthand that if she left with them, then there would be no one here to defend the forest. The same thing that happened to Bullet could happen to any of them, to any of the forest creatures, and the Powerpuff Girls won't always be there to save them like they were for Bullet. She would stay and help defend who she could. Help make sure no other creature is ripped away from his family like she was. The safety of her fellow woodland creatures before her own happiness. But before the girls would go, they would promise to see each other again. Promise that they would end up keeping, because unlike Bunny, we would see her just one more time before the series will ultimately end. Never getting to reunite with her family, but deciding to stay and do what's right for her forest anyways. Throughout the vast history of the Powerpuff Girls, there hasn't really been any characters that deserve to come back more than these two. Both of them are heroes who put their own lives aside to do what they believed was right. Whether their origin came from sugar, spice, dirt, twigs, or even just good old Chemical X, it wouldn't matter. Because when it came down to it, their heart is what defined their actions. And that's why I'll always consider them to be Powerpuff Girls. Another fourth Powerpuff Girl that I ended up putting in the thumbnail, but I already made a video about her, so I won't be including her here. You can go watch that video. It's up. She had nothing to do with the creation of the original Powerpuff Girls. She wasn't created by Craig McCracken, but she is somebody who I can appreciate at the very least. So if you're interested in her and her origin story, definitely go check out that video as well. But until then, the day has been saved by Bliss, Bunny, and Bullet the Squirrel.